Hello everyone, welcome back to Racing with Isha, and if it's your first time here, I hope you enjoyed today's video because I will be recapping the Belgian Grand Prix. So today's race was at the Spa-Francorchamps track, which is a very historic and popular track. And today's race was certainly very, very entertaining from start to finish, especially the last few laps. So let's get right into it. I will start talking about the winner, who was disqualified, but we'll get more into that later. And then I'll talk about some specific events from the race, and we'll get into the overall scoreboard from today, and then we'll look at where we will be after the summer break. So let's get this show on the road. So the winner was supposed to be George Russell. He had an insane run. He had a great last few laps, especially where he held off Lewis Hamilton and Oscar Piastri, who was a little bit further back. It was supposed to be his second win. However, shortly after, the FIA did inform him and the team that he was disqualified because his car was underweight. It was 1.5 kg, I believe, under the FIA requirement. And because of that, he was disqualified, which was very unfortunate. However, the win still stayed within Mercedes because it went to his teammate, Lewis Hamilton. It was also a second win for him. So Lewis Hamilton wasn't able to actually celebrate on track because he had already left for summer break by the time the FIA did inform Mercedes and George Russell of that decision. Anyways, the last few laps were certainly very entertaining to watch. At one point, I was a little bit nervous for the two Mercedes drivers, and I was surprised that Mercedes didn't tell Lewis Hamilton to back off a bit because, had one of them accidentally pushed into the other, things could have ended very badly, and then Oscar Piastri would have had his second win of the season. But that's not what happened. George Russell held on to that lead. Unfortunately, the win was given to Lewis Hamilton, or fortunately for him. Oscar Piastri came second, and then Charles Leclerc was promoted to that third podium spot. Now, looking at McLaren, they had a bit of a mixed day. Lando had an unfortunately bad start. He did drop down a few positions at the start of the race. I believe he started in fourth and then finished in fifth. And so at the start of the race, Max Verstappen was right on his tail. And then a few laps after that, Max Verstappen was able to overtake Lando, and then Lando was right behind him. And while it's not impossible to overtake Max, it is certainly very, very difficult, especially at today's track. And unfortunately, Lando was not able to get around Max, and then he ended the race right behind him. But anyways, looking at Oscar, he had a great race. He had a good start as well, and then, was able to maintain a great position throughout the race and then finished in second. It's very interesting to see Oscar's performances recently. As we all know, last weekend in Hungary, he won. It was his first win of Formula One. And today's performance was also very good from him. And I think that he is gaining a lot more confidence, and I think that he's performing very well. So it's going to be very, very fun to see how he keeps it up after the summer break. Oscar also today had two pit stops that I would like to talk about. So the first pit stop was 2.0 seconds, a very good time. However, the second pit stop was 4.4 seconds, and that was neither Oscar's nor the team's fault. Oscar did overshoot the mark, unfortunately, and he almost wiped out his front jack, But other than that, I think that it did cost him a few seconds, and those seconds could have been crucial in the last few laps in him possibly getting an advantage on Lewis Hamilton. And had that happened, he would have been declared the winner after George Russell's disqualification. But regardless, it was a great run from Oscar, great points. Him and Lando brought back for McLaren. Looking at another team now, Ferrari, I don't think it was the best it definitely wasn't the best they could have done. Charles started on pole, unfortunately lost that lead. I'm surprised that he was able to maintain it in the first corner, but I think that was mostly due to the fact that Lewis Hamilton, who was starting in third, was putting pressure on Checo, who was in second, because I expected Checo to be able to take the lead from him, but that didn't happen because he was trying to battle Lewis Hamilton. And so Charles held on to that lead for the first few laps, and then after that, Lewis Hamilton was able to take it from him because he had put pressure on Checo and had taken that second place spot, and then was able to take the lead from Charles. I feel like Charles does struggle a little bit with defending, especially when he's leading a race or in the first few positions. But anyways, looking at his teammate, Carlos Sainz, he also had the lead for some time, and I think he was doing a great job with it. He was I think one of the only drivers, or perhaps the only driver, who started the race on a set of hard tires, which was actually a good decision because it was able to give him the lead and he ran a good distance with it. Then they brought him in to pit, and then his second pit stop did confuse me a little bit because it happened only 7 laps after his first one. So I don't really understand why Ferrari chose to bring him in for the second pit stop only 7 laps after. His tires were still very new, but either way, Carlos Sainz also brought points home. So at the end of the day, it wasn't too bad a performance from Ferrari, but they definitely could have done better. If we look at the scoreboard for today's race, obviously win went to Hamilton after Russell's disqualification. Piastri and Leclerc made up the podium. Max Verstappen was in 4th, which is impressive because he was starting in 11th after the penalty that he was given for his 4th engine change. And then Lando Norris was in 5th. Carlos Sainz was in 6th. 7th went to Checo. 8th, Alonso. 9th, Esteban Ocon. And 10 went to Daniel Ricciardo. Now, last place was Zhou Guanyu because he unfortunately DNF'd. He had an issue right at the start of the race and was unable to continue. And then, as we all know, George Russell was disqualified. Anyways, looking at another team, Haas, so they have signed on their 2 new drivers, which is a bold move because instead of keeping one old driver and signing on a new one, they're going with 2 new drivers. So it's going to be Esteban Ocon and Oliver Behrman. Oliver Behrman did substitute in for Ferrari's Carlos Sainz earlier this year and had a great performance. So I think that he's going to do well. I think that him and Esteban Ocon being paired together is a good decision. I think they're going to be able to push each other and perform really well. And I'm excited to see how the team goes for next season. Now, as I mentioned earlier, all the drivers are on summer break right now, but once we return from that, the next race will be in Zandvoort, which is also a historic and popular track. So the Dutch Grand Prix will be on Sunday, August 25th, a little bit less than a month away. And just some quick fun facts about the circuit. So the circuit lengthwise is 2.65 miles. It is 72 laps. So it's a shorter track than today's Spa, which we know Spa is a very, very long track, considering that the race was only 44 laps long. Now, looking at some historical wins. So for the constructor who has had the most wins at Zandvoort, it's Ferrari with 8 wins. And if you look at a single driver with the most wins, that is Jim Clark with 4 wins. Now, we know that Zandvoort is a difficult track for overtaking, but it is a nice track, and I think it's one that drivers can appreciate. And I think that the banking has something to do with that. You can especially notice it at turn 3. So I think that the drivers are going to be excited returning from summer break and going straight into Zandvoort. But overall, that's pretty much it for today's video. I will try to get out a few more videos, at least 1 or 2 more during the summer break, perhaps recapping the first half of the season, looking at specific teams. Other than that, that's all for today's video. I will see you all in my next one.